Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast, a place where backcountry warriors can share their stories of grit, service, healing, and wilderness adventures. I'm your host, Tom Walton, Marine Corps veteran, full-time cop, and aspiring hunting and fishing guide. Join me and others as we journey from the hood to the woods in pursuit of freedom in the outdoors. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Tom Walton, and today I'm joined by nobody. Kind of wanted to get an episode recorded post mule deer hunt. So I've been pretty busy this October, as I'm sure most of you have. Was out doing some mule deer hunting this last week. Did a whitetail doe hunt on essentially a management tag the week before that. So I've been out there pretty busy. Haven't had a lot of chance to record episodes, and I don't want to let you guys down and not have one in the chute ready for this coming week. So this one's actually going to come out pretty quick after I record it. So I just figured I'd spend a little bit of time and debrief my hunts with you guys and let you know what's coming up on the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Started October with just a whitetail doe hunt here in North Idaho. It was when we have controlled hunt tags. They're not draw or not like tags that you can buy over the counter, not over the counter tags. They're essentially draw tags for residents. And sometimes these tags can provide opportunities. Sometimes, just like any other draw, it's in lieu of your general tag. But this tag was an extra tag. So I got an extra antlerless whitetail deer tag and decided to go up to the area to try to see if I can't fill it. So not a long hunt. It was pretty awesome day, but just had a really quick opportunity to go up for, I set aside 4 days in the first week of October. It was nice because this was before the general rifle season opened up and after archery season. So unless you were a tag holder for this particular tag, there was no one else in the woods and the deer hadn't been shot at yet. So that was super helpful as far as just getting to watch deer. I actually saw a ton of bucks, which was pretty cool. And of course, saw them before I could shoot any of them, which was okay because I was saving my general tag for my mule deer hunt. But it was cool to see the large amount of whitetail bucks that I saw. So put that knowledge in my back pocket for another time. Went up to camp on a Thursday afternoon and got set up and just went and looked for deer in a spot that I kind of wanted to hunt, and didn't see any that night, but I had a feeling that I would in the morning, so I wasn't too upset about it. Got up early before sunrise Friday morning, went ahead and went to my hunting spot. And it's kind of a cool spot, for folks that aren't, maybe newer to hunting or always looking for new spots and stuff. One of the tricks that I use to find, especially deer spots, I kind of want to share with everybody because, I'm here to inspire and educate. So what I do is I'll take, spots that I call them hidden in plain sight spots. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that does this, but, I look for spots that are essentially just far enough off of a road. And sometimes that can just be due to not just mileage, but like a terrain feature, like a big ridge or something that like a road hunter, and I'm not knocking on it if that's what you do, but a road hunter is going to drive by it. They're going to be like, I'm not walking up that ridge. And on the flip side of that, you're going to have guys that are like hardcore hunters. They're going to look at that and be like, oh, that's too close to the road to hunt. And I like those spots because I tend to find a lot of animals in those spots, and they're, I say like medium easy to medium difficulty to get to. Usually not too hard time-wise, maybe a little bit of a climb, but I really like those spots. So this was one of those spots I'd found, and I was pretty confident in it because I've seen deer plenty of their times there before. Went out there in the morning and just kind of slowly hunted my way into it. Got up to the ridge. I don't know. It was just after shooting light, probably 6:30-ish. And just one of those spots where you keep your head on a swivel. You go to kind of look at a specific clear cut, but the deer could really, be kind of anywhere. When I got up to my glassing spot, I just told myself, hey, man, remember to look 360. And so I did. And sure enough, when I looked over my left shoulder, I saw a couple of does walking on an edge, a tree line, in kind of a brushier area. So I got set up where I thought they'd come out to feed. I was shooting my 300 Win Mag just because that's the gun that I'm the most comfortable with right now. And I know a lot of people, oh, that's a lot of gun. Well-placed shots. I'm telling you, I didn't lose meat. and we can get into that later, and I'm happy to answer questions anybody that reaches out. So set up and watching these does. They're feeding in the brush. I don't really have a shot, but I'm pretty confident that one of them is going to feed out. The good thing was I had plenty of time to make sure that they weren't does with fawns. There were no fawns around. These are just a couple of adult does by themselves, which makes me feel better because I'm not trying to shoot a doe with fawns. Even on a management tag, it's just not what I want to do. I've heard they can survive, but I don't know. Just for me, I like to shoot a doe that's by herself. They fed out in front. I had a real nice, easy shot at 150 yards and took it. Good broadside shot. Doe went 40 yards, fell into a ditch, and it was over. Nice and clean and ethical. That was great. Just on the 300 Win Mag thing, I mean, the entrance wound on one side was a pinhole, and the exit wound on the other side was maybe 2 by 2 inches. Not very big at all. 0 meat loss that I had to deal with. It was great. So that was a really nice morning hunt. Had her packed out and back to camp by 11 o'clock. And it's just because I like to take my time and keep my meat clean when I'm working an animal in the field. But quartered her out, packed her out, and got her to camp and spent the rest of that day fishing. And then I got to hang out with a buddy later that night who joined me in camp for that night and the next morning. It was just a good little first warm-up hunt of the season. So yeah, that was really good and just a great way to start getting the freezer a little bit filled up too. So after that trip, came back and I had about 2.5 weeks to go before it was time to go on the big trip that I had planned, which was, as you guys heard in a previous episode, on a river in Idaho. And the plan was with my buddy Chad and his son-in-law, Sam. We planned to jet boat up to a certain area, and we were going to hunt a mule deer. And I had a elk tag for the cap zone there where we were going to hunt. And I'm just going to pause this real quick, so just a quick break here.
Before we get started, I want to thank our first partner, Response Ready Medical. Response Ready Medical, bringing our customers the best quality training and equipment for the worst case scenario. Response Ready Medical's vision is to be the leading provider of emergency preparedness solutions across the United States, empowering communities, organizations, and individuals to respond confidently and preserve life during critical moments. Offering same-day certification, all response-ready medical classes are instructed by nationally registered and state-licensed firefighter, paramedics, law enforcement officers, and hospital staff. Classes currently being offered by Response Ready Medical include CPR and AED, CPR, AED, and first aid, emergency trauma care, child and babysitting safety, CABS, backcountry medicine, and wilderness first aid. Your premium partner in emergency preparedness, Response Ready Medical.
All right. So, yeah, planning on jet boating up and hunting for hopefully big mule deer bucks. Is actually the same place that the buck that's on if you're watching on YouTube, the buck over my left shoulder there was the buck that I took there last year in that same spot. So, and we had seen elk, and I was pretty excited. We had 9 days planned. The weather was looking pretty horrible, which had me a little bit anxious. But, I mean, that's just kind of hunting this time of year, right? In the Pacific Northwest, it's going to get cold. It's going to get wet. So just being prepared with rain gear. I ended up buying a new rain jacket for the gear guys out there. It's the Kuiu, I think, Katana rain jacket is what it was, kind of one of their midline rain jackets. And I will tell you that rain jacket right out of the package in the field was absolutely bulletproof. I got rained on pretty good in it, snowed on in it, and I was very happy with the performance of that jacket. I got a little bit larger size just so I could fit layers like puffies and my mid layers and stuff underneath of it, and worked out great. So happy with that rain jacket. But anyways, onto the hunt. So spent a couple weeks getting ready, planning, looking on X, and got pretty excited. Last Friday came around and it was time to go. Left my house super, super early to go to my buddy's house to pick him and his boat up. And we took my truck and pulled his boat down to the river. I got down to the river mid-afternoon. Pretty excited still, obviously, as it was starting to get real that we were going to be hopefully repeating last year's epic hunt. And loaded up the boat. We were going to make 2 trips. And when we were loading up the boat, I told my buddy Chad, I was like, man, we ought to probably, just because it's late enough in the day, like, let's just take a couple days worth of food, rain gear, warm clothes, camp stuff, like just the very basics that we would need to survive a night. Because that night it was supposed to rain. The forecast had called for an atmospheric river. And for folks that don't live in the West Coast and know what atmospheric rivers are, essentially just really, really, really crazy rainstorms that last forever with pretty heavy downpours of rain, can potentially, especially this time of year, lead to some pretty heavy mountain snowfall. But that's what was expected to hit Friday night. We were expected to get an atmospheric river started, and it was supposed to rain nonstop for a day or two. So just want to make sure we're prepared. And kind of a little foreshadowing, last year, Chad's boat had some engine troubles, and we kind of got broke down on the river. And the short of that long story is that we quickly taught ourselves how to become boat mechanics. It was the first time I ever broke down a carburetor, and we got the boat running just enough to be able to limp it back to the boat launch. We did have help that trip from a fella who was just wild how things worked out there. It's big country, but small. I had another jet boat guy run into us and was friends with Chad already, had known him, used to be neighbors, and so he took all of our heavy stuff out while we limped the boat down with the butt power we had. But yeah, so that was also in the back of my mind when I said, hey, let's just bring enough stuff to make sure we can survive if we can't get back to the boat launch in the truck to get the rest of our stuff tonight. So we loaded up all that gear and we took off, cruising up the river, boat's running good. Chad just had it rebuilt, and it was just beautiful. The sky was pretty clear because that storm hadn't quite started to roll in yet, and we were feeling really good. Nice, cool day, crisp air, smelled beautiful, big mountains, big scenery. We just knew we were going to be seeing some big mule deer bucks, and we start cruising up. We get up our first few set of rapids, and we've got one more rapid between us and camp. And when we get up over that last rapid, Chad didn't have the most powerful boat. So, when we hit some of those rapids, you kind of like, all right, come on, baby, let's go. Let's get up to this rapid here. But he's been on some of these big Western rivers. You know what I'm talking about. These rapids are no joke, right? These are some pretty big. I don't know, like the classifications, with class 1, 2, 3, 4 and all that stuff, but they're big rapids with big boulders, and it's a big river. And we get up over the last big rapid, and we're right around the bend from where we plan on setting up camp and hunting. I mean, we can pretty much see the ridges that we're going to be hiking up, the next day, hopefully. All of a sudden, Dad's boat makes a crazy, like, clunking sound and loses power very abruptly. I kind of thought, I'm like, that's weird, but maybe Chad's slowing down on purpose because he wants to check something out before we hit this last little rapid and then get to camp. And I asked him, like, Chad, is that you or the boat? And he said, man, that ain't me. And he pulls us over to shore. And as soon as we get to shore, I mean, the timing couldn't have been better, thankfully, in this sense. But as soon as we get to nose the boat into the sand, it dies, completely loses power, dies, and the boat's dead in the water. We're stuck. We're on the river, and we got a little tiny kicker, but that's not going to be safe for us to navigate down the rapids with this particular boat and that little kicker with the prop and a couple of oars. That kicker could get us across the river if we needed to, set up in get across for a better emergency camp, but that's about it. We weren't going to navigate safely. I mean, maybe we could have made it. We're not going to safely navigate back down with just the kicker motor. So we're sitting there and just start looking at the engine, and I mean, the thing is seized. There's no way in heck we're going to fix it on the river. You could tell immediately. It looked like it overheated and just something inside of it broke. I'm not a mechanic, so the mechanics listening, maybe you can hit me up and say you know what happened. But from the best of our knowledge and what we could recognize, the issue being it seized up and it was dead. It wasn't going to start. So we tied up the boat and we got out the in reaches and we started trying to think of, like, what the heck are we going to do? I'm starting to text some folks that I know that jet boat that river, some of the outfits I know up there, maybe they could help us out. Well, we're trying to kind of think about what to do, kind of like the year before. Here comes a boat, and everybody on the river's always great, right? Everybody's been in a pickle on the river and had to get help, and so there's not a lot of people that aren't willing to pull over, check on a fella, and see if that they can help out. And that's what this guy did. He pulled over, nice fella named Mike. Mike pulls over. He's got his wife with him and recognizes Chad because Chad's a legend in this country. And immediately he's like, hey, I'll give you guys a ride out. So he ended up giving us a ride out. We loaded up our gear on his boat, got out. Thankfully, we got out of there before dark. I mean, it was cutting it pretty close, and you don't want to run these rivers in the dark. So, but thankfully we made it back to the boat launch right as it was getting probably too dark to ride that boat downriver. But unfortunately for Chad, we had to leave his boat tied on the bank of the river, and we weren't sure how if or when we were going to get that boat back. Only consolation we had was that Mike didn't seem that towing that boat out of there was going to be a big deal. Just he couldn't do it because his boat wasn't powerful enough. So we head back to town that night because I was kind of at a loss. We figured we'd get back to town, see if we could talk to some local outfitters and see if someone had a boat powerful enough to tow us out, not knowing really what we do. And it took us about an hour to get back to town, so starting to get kind of late. We end up just picking up a room at one of the local motels. It was one of the cheapest rooms we could possibly find. And it actually ended up being a real nice hotel and motel. I'm not going to name them just because it'll cue y'all into where we were at, and no disrespect, but we don't want to do that, right? It's not my spot to burn. But if the proprietor ever happens to hear this and knows who we are, remembers the situation, thanks, man. Appreciate the room. It was very clean. It was a good room, and we were comfortable. So we bedded down for the night, woke up the next morning, went to the restaurant, and while we were sitting there eating breakfast, I called my wife and was telling her what happened. And I consider this God working in our lives and keeping us safe and always presenting solutions. And another good reason to trust him is sitting there telling my wife this, and the guy and his family at the table next to us overhear me telling my wife the story of us breaking down the river, leaving the boat, and not knowing what the heck we're going to do. And mind you, before we'd even gone to breakfast, we'd called multiple outfitters. Everyone was busy either hunting or fishing and didn't have time to come help us right now. Our last resort was kind of just to go to the boat launch, try to grab one of the fishing outfits and see if maybe they would help us out at the end of their day. But this fella at the table next to us, Phil, great dude. I can't say enough about him and his family But he turns around and he said, "Hey, so you guys are stuck on the river, huh?" Like, yeah, and we explained our situation, told him the size of our small boat, told him what size boat we had and what happened. And he was like, "Man, I can get you guys out. I just can't do it till Thursday." And we weren't going to argue with that. We were pretty confident the boat would stay where it was at. And so we said, absolutely, we'll take you up on that offer. And Chad bought the fella breakfast, and we parted ways after exchanging numbers with plans for him to bring his giant jet boat down and tow us out Thursday, which is about 6 days from where we were at. We were Saturday when this was happening now. So with that figured out, we just were kind of left to all right, well, what are we going to do to salvage a hunting trip? Thankfully, it's Idaho. It's a big state. General deer tags give us a lot of options. Unfortunately, my elk tag was no longer an option just because for us to go access elk in the unit that I had the tag for, we really needed that boat. With the weather blowing in, it kind of precluded some of the other options as far as safety and snow and stuff like that. A lot of risk in some of the high country. So we ended up picking a spot that Chad had been to for a couple of years prior and seen some big bucks. But when he had been there before, it was later in the year. Just a little, again, foreshadowing footnote, keep that in the back of your mind. We were going to be in there probably almost 2 weeks early compared to when he was there the first time. Mule deer hunters kind of know what I'm already getting at. But hey, you know what? We had a plan to hunt. We had a plan for the boat. We were safe, and we could figure out everything else after that. We were starting to feel a little bit better and kind of getting back to being excited. So we made about a 3.5-hour trek to our new hunting spot, got camp set up. In some ways it was nice because we just camped at the trucks. This is still pretty remote country, so not a lot of people around there, which is really, really nice. And we never had anybody drive by or pull up our camp. I mean, we were good end of the road camping spot. So we set up our camp, got everything situated, and got ready to decide we were going to do a little evening hunt that night. But keep in mind that atmospheric river had been forecasted. So with the weather in mind, on the way down to get to this spot, you have to drive way, way up into the mountains, probably about 7,000, maybe a little more feet. I mean, not the highest mountains in the world, but at this time of year, I mean, that's where snow's falling by now. And often it's going to be on the ground from October till May, maybe even June sometimes. When we drove over the mountains, it's starting to snow a little bit, just barely starting to stick. And when you come down back into this area, we're going to hunt a different fork of the same river we originally planned on. Driving back down to the river, I mean, it's like you're going from 7,000 to 3,000 feet, and it's a steep, windy road. And it leaves you like no room for error. If you were to slip off this road on a snowy day on the downhill side, you're going to roll 3,000 feet, and that's it. Can't picture a scenario in which you walk away from rolling off that mountain in your pickup truck or any vehicle for that matter. And Chad's telling me a story as we're driving down there about his previous experience when they had a hard time getting out later, in November with 17 inches of snow and all 4 tires on the pickup chained, and they barely made it out alive. I'm like, man, yeah, I could see this road, having never driven it myself, but now being on it, I could see how that would be a problem. So when we go back, we get camp set up, and we're to go hunt for the evening. It was pretty cool because we had just tons of mule deer does hanging around camp. So we just watched them that night. We just had to hike up the hill a little ways and watch them till dark. No buck showed up to check them out. So we went back down to camp, starting to absolutely pour rain. So we get in our tent, turn on, we had very nice setup, good canvas tent. We had some nice buddy heaters. And so we turned those on, got everything nice and cozy, dried off, and hit the hay. Well, as I'm laying there, the storm picks up. And big winds, 50 plus mile an hour gust, just pelting rain. Like I said, it's atmospheric river. So it had already been raining all day. It really hadn't stopped, and it is just storming something awful. And folks, I'm not going to lie, a little piece of me was pretty daggone worried that was causing snow up high. And I was just between seeing that road, knowing it was snowing, and Chad's story, I was a little bit anxious that night and had a little bit of difficulty falling asleep thinking about, potential trouble getting up. And Chad's son-in-law hadn't joined us yet. And he was saying, hey, I'm checking the weather. It looks like it might be okay. But if it looks like I have to put chains to get down the mountain, I'm just not going to come. And I was a little bit worried. But, when I got up to, use the bathroom that night, stepped out of the tent, the rain had stopped and the sky cleared. And so that kind of lifted my spirits. I'm like, well, at least whatever precipitation, snow or rain was happening in the mountains is done. And when we woke up that morning, just beautiful morning, clear skies, and nice and cold. So we loaded up, had breakfast, coffee, took off walking, climbed up the hill, and because we had seen the does from camp, we had a spot about 3 miles from camp picked out where we wanted to be. But seeing those does by camp, we just decided to leave at shooting light so that we might not miss an opportunity close to camp. And we just figured we'd hunt our way to our final destination that day. And that's what we did. We took off, got our packs on and our rifles, and hiked, and probably got about 3/4 to half mile from camp. And it was just stopping and glassing with the binos, and just looked out, and I could see this ridge line that was kind of starting to get some sunshine. And I could see some green patches of grass with a lot of brush around it. I was like, man, it looks like a place a deer would hang out. And so I lifted up my binos and took a look at it. And sure enough, I could see a little deer there. And he was rubbing his horns on some bushes. And I was like, man, that looks like a little buck. Chad and I busted out the spotting scope, took a quick look. Yep, it's got horns, raking the brush. And going into this, I kind of hoped to shoot, moderately mature buck. I didn't really care if I shot a buck as big as I did the year before or bigger. Mostly just wanted some meat. And so I wasn't looking to pass many opportunities this year. I just wanted to get a deer down. And so I was like, well, why don't we go make a stalk on this? I couldn't tell how small he was, just could tell he wasn't a big buck. Chad was completely good with it, so we decided to, go over, see if we can get on that ridge. And I was like, man, if we get over there, it's probably about 8 to 100 to 1,000 yards away when I spotted him. And we had to hike around to get to him a ways. So I figured if he was still there and we could relocate him, I probably would just take the shot and get some meat in the freezer. So we walked over, and as we were walking along the side of the mountain, I, kept periodically could get a glimpse of him, and it would just check. I'm like, yeah, he's still there, and he's feeding. And so I started to get a little bit excited, but, I figured whatever, if we don't get on this buck and it doesn't work out, I'm sure we'll see other small bucks and we'll get more opportunities. But I figured we'd at least give it a try. So we come up with the plan. He was feeding on kind of the northeastish side of a ridge, and when we got over there, we could tell that the wind was coming up and over down onto him. So we kind of knew that was going to be a problem. We figured our best bet would just be to get on the down off the ridge on the opposite side of him and just see if we could walk past him and then come up and spot him from over further down the ridge than he was. Just based on the brush and topography, we figured that was going to be our best bet at getting a shot. We weren't going to be able to walk from our side of the ridge that we were starting on and spot him without having to go past him and then look back, if that makes sense. So we got dropped down a little bit, side hilled, came up, and we looked and looked and looked and looked. Couldn't relocate the deer. Was kind of getting worried that maybe our scent ended up dropping down that side, and maybe he winded us and was out of there. I was kind of like, well, no big deal, man. Like, we look pretty hard. Let's just move on. We're going to go to some better spots and probably find some bigger bucks. Well, as we were about to leave, Dad's like, hey, I think I see him, and got my attention. He's like, yep, it is. I walked over there, and sure enough, Chad just happened to spot that buck bedded in some brush. And I got set up on him, and I think we went from well over 800 yards to now we had him at 84 yards bedded. And I just figured, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take this deer. It's just a forky. But like I said, I just wanted to fill my tag. The time we had allotted to hunt just got cut in half. I mean, we had started with 9 days and now we had like 4 days. So and we had 3 tags to fill. I didn't really care to be picky. I just wanted some meat in my freezer, and it was a pretty cool opportunity. So I got down, got set up, ready to take the shot. Couldn't shoot him when he was bedded because he just didn't offer me any way to get to his vitals through the brush and then his angle towards me. So I had to wait for him to stand up. And I mean, we waited for this poor little fella to stand up probably for about 30 minutes. We even tried throwing some rocks down there, but he was just so comfortable with where he was at that he thought he must have been like invisible because he just didn't flinch. But finally, it's like, I don't know if the wind finally shifted just right or something, but I think he finally caught our scent. And he stands up, turns broadside, and I just took the shot. Got him heart and lung. An interesting thing about the shot was his head and shoulders were behind a bush. I thought I was plenty clear of the bush, but I do think that my bullet hit the bush and tumbled. The entrance wound was right where I was aiming, but this deer was perfectly broadside, and somehow that bullet went diagonal through his body and came out the far shoulder, which kind of sucks a little bit. But I was able to salvage most of that shoulder meat. However, the entrance wound was bigger than normal, and the exit wound was pretty gnarly. And yeah, I know I shoot a 300 Win mag, but like I explained with that doe, when you hit him right, you don't lose a lot of meat. And I think what happened was that bullet must have, and folks, if you're listening and you got information on ballistics and what happens when bullets impact sticks and twigs and branches, let me know. But I think I just didn't quite clear that bush, probably hit some of that brush in front of him, and that bullet likely tumbled. Again, I mean, it was a good shot, got all the vitals. His insides were obliterated. He ran all of about 3 yards, fell over, rolled 10 yards, got stuck in the brush, and that was it. I never lost sight of him. But I was pretty happy. I was really excited. I mean, this is only the second mule deer I've had an opportunity to take. So day 1 of our hunt, got a mule deer with plenty of time left in the day to go hunt for more for Chad. So got him butchered up. We went and hung him in the shade just off the trail and continued to hunt. Later that day, Chad's son-in-law, Sam, he catches up to us, and we hunt. We see a bunch of does, don't really see anything else, go back to camp. That night, it rained down by the river, and then everything over probably about 3,500 feet, 4,000 feet was snow. Thankfully, it wasn't a lot of snow, and it was going to be sunny the next couple of days, so we felt good about our ability to get out of there. What I had learned was that if you get snowed in there in the late season, and you can't get out, your truck just lives there till the spring. You're not in dire straits, but you are going to have to get an expensive plane ride on a postal service plane back out of there. And from what I was told, it would cost you $600 to get a ride out on that plane, and then you just have to figure out how to get back in there in the spring and get your truck when the snow melts. So not something that I wanted to do, but we were feeling pretty good about it. We hunted all day that day and looked at that same group of does that we had found in the evening, the second day after I shot my deer. Had a forky and a spike in the group, didn't see anything else, went back to camp. Beautiful day. Was cold, but just gorgeous. I mean, for the most part, fairly clear skies, couple snow flurries, beautiful snow-covered mountains, the big river, way down below us. It was just, I mean, that's part of the reason I like hunting mule deer is just the country. It's just so dang pretty. But yeah, the next day we hunted again, and Chad's son-in-law, Sam, decided that he wanted to also fill a freezer, and that was also after consulting with his wife, like, hey, if you shoot a small buck, because you're not seeing any other bucks, like, great, you get a deer and you can come home and you can be done. So, and my wife kind of echoed that sentiment. So he ended up deciding to take the forky, And so we ended up with 2 forkies down. We got his deer down at the end of the day, so it was cutting it up in the dark, and a 3-mile pack out with about 100 foot of elevation to drop that we had climbed from camp. So it was a good pack out. Not the heaviest deer to pack out, and especially with 3 of us, but made for a late night, and got back to camp, put the deer up with my deer, got up and hunted. That would have been day 3, so we hunted 1 more day, 2 more days. No, we hunted 1 more day. We hunted 1 more full day and just never found any bigger bucks. We saw, I'll take that back. At the end of the last day, we did see a big buck. Not a big buck, I'm sorry, bigger buck. He was still probably only 2.5 years old. But one, he was too far away for Chad to shoot. I mean, he's probably 600 yards away and just outside of our comfort zone. And then on top of that, Chad had taken an elk already that year and was just looking for a nice mule deer. And so nothing wrong with either mentality, whether meat hunting or you're trying to find a nice animal. I think both are great. We were doing kind of both on this hunt. But so we, that was how that hunt kind of ended, was with 2 small bucks. But it was great because we were able to salvage the hunt after our boat broke down. We had to pick a new spot to go to. And, that's just that's hunting, right? That's adventures in the West. Things happen, boats break, you problem solve, you get through it, and you be flexible, and you still go out and you can make a hunt. I mean, especially in a state like Idaho that's so big, right? And, I know that could probably be a problem for some non-residents because your tags limit you a little bit more to zones, but, a lot of times about mindset. We never really got down or pissed off we had some moments of stress and anxiety about the boat, what we were going to do with it, some anxiety about the weather and getting snowed in back in that canyon, but it all worked out, and we made a good time, and we had a lot of good laughs, saw a lot of beautiful country. And at the end of the day, other than the expense it's going to cost Chad to get a new boat, ended up, we wouldn't change anything about it. So we got up out of there, left camp early yesterday morning, actually. So about 5 days after 6 days after we got in there. And then we had to go get the boat. So we drove all the way back to the 3 hours to the river. Thankfully, that fella held true to his word. And we met him, went back to the boat launch where we had put in, and he took us to go get our boat. And this guy and all of his, I think it was probably family, but maybe friends and family with him. But everybody on that boat, there's probably about 5 or 6 guys on there, and they just all pitched in, jumping off, tying ropes, looking at the boat, trying to figure out the best way to do things, and they got us tied up and started towing us. And I will say I was pretty nervous, and it's funny about that because, these are decent rapids, right? And getting towed behind a big jet boat and our little jet boat was a little harrowing. And before we took off, a fella who just kind of gave off the vibe as like a dude that's been on the river before. To me, he struck me as like an angler and a bird hunter, and it turns out both ended up being true. Just a really good old boy. And he looks at us and he said, "Hey, you guys nervous?" And we said, "Yeah, you know what? We kind of are." And he said, "Good. It means you're not stupid, but you'll be okay." So, all right, well, if you say so, man. So we get in the boat, and we got tied up, and they kind of do a couple of little practice laps to make sure the distance between the 2 boats is right. Because if we're too close, he's going to drag our bow under. And then if we're too far, I think if we're too far, that drags the bow under. If we're too close, he swamps us with his wake. One of the two. We had to be just right. So we did a couple little laps in the more calm part of the river and then took off. And other than the first rapid, it was a pretty fun ride. We got wet, but the first rapid we go through, he goes through it, and then when we go through it, we come into this big rolling dip in the water. That's kind of, I believe that's caused by a dip in the bottom of the river, causes the river to roll. But we kind of nose into that, man, and we just looked at it I think we're about to get wet. And sure enough, an absolute tidal wave of water comes over the boat and nails us. And I could just say that it was like somebody taking a fire hose filled with Slurpee and spraying you, man. It just felt like you're getting pounded with ice and ice water, but it was pretty wild. Thankfully, we had the wherewithal to grab our rain gear before we went on that ride, and so we didn't get overly soaked, but just a little bit of a cold ride. And after that, they had us down in about 5-10 minutes to the boat launch. We loaded up Chad's boat, thanked them profusely. Chad tried to pay the fella, but just like I explained to you guys, I mean, he said he'd been helped out on the river. It's just what people do. And he absolutely refused to take any of the money that Chad had brought to give to him. Just again, a testament to hunters, anglers, outdoors people, Idahoans, just people helping people out of a tight spot. And, you know, when you're in the backcountry, that's just what I think you do, right? You help people when you see that they need help. And you do it, one, because it's the right thing to do. And above all, that's what you should do. You should help. But there's also that little bit of like paying it forward, because you know someday you are probably going to be in a situation that you got in a little over your head, or your boat broke down on the river, or whatever the situation is, and you're going to want somebody to stop and help you too. I can't say enough about Phil and all of his friends and family that helped out. They took the time out of their day, refused any form of payment. They just did it out of the kindness of their hearts, and because they're good dudes. And I really hope that I get to see them again someday, just because they're the kind of people you want to hang out with. But yeah, we got the boat loaded up on the truck, went back, got lunch, and drove home. So that was our trip. It was an adventure. It didn't end up being what we planned it to be. We didn't get into the big bucks we wanted to be in, but I still wouldn't change anything. I'm perfectly happy with the smaller buck I took. Got plenty of mule deer hunts ahead of me, so it's all good. You know, on the big buck part of it, you know, if I had to guess, I would say that just we were a little bit early. We were in that country ahead of the bigger deer. You know, Chad had been in there a little bit later in the year last time, and I just think that those bucks were still a little higher up. The big ones still a little higher up, still kind of staging, and just hadn't come down to start checking does. And it just is what it is. I do think that I think there were some big bucks in that country. We saw some signs, some fresh tracks and rubs. It just they weren't out cruising where we were out looking. So it is what it is. I am glad I took that buck too, just because that ended up being the only buck I would have had an opportunity on the whole trip. And it was a hunting trip, and I just wanted to come home with some meat for the freezer. So that all worked out. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to debrief on this. You know, it was quite an adventure. It was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to next year. I don't know what next year is going to look like, but I do have a feeling we're going to end up trying to get back to where we originally planned to go this year. And then I'm definitely going to have to make up for not hunting elk this year with a good elk hunt next year. So that's to be determined as well. We'll figure that out as time starts going. In the meantime, I've still got some hunting to do for my wife and a couple of buddies that I want to take out hunting for some whitetails. My wife still has a deer tag. We're going to try to get out this week and fill that. She also has a cow tag for our area that's good all the way through December 31st. And so we plan on trying to locate a herd of elk and see if we can't pull us a big fat old cow out of the herd and get that freezer topped off nicely. So looking forward to those hunts. Yeah, so that's kind of it. As far as we got coming up on the podcast, got Jagger, who you guys have heard John and I talk about, you know, amazing young man with spinal bifida, who John had done an incredible job with the fundraiser to get him a cart, you know, like a motorized cart that helps him get anywhere in the woods, because that young man just loves to hunt. In fact, shout out Jagger. I saw that you got yourself an elk this year, so congratulations, buddy. Just, it's incredible what you're capable of going out there and doing with all the things that stand in your way. You make me feel pretty small when, you know, I can't go out and accomplish half the things you do, and I'm perfectly physically able. So congrats, buddy. Super proud of you. Honored to know you. And Jagger will definitely be on the podcast really soon. I think we'll probably be recording in the next week or two. We're going to do some follow-up with the folks from Backcountry Bistro. We got John, I'm sure, is going to come back on. I've got my buddy Andrew. We're going to talk about his mule deer hunt. So yeah, we got some episodes coming up. And then before you know it, spring will be here, and we're going to all kinds of turkey content lined up for you guys as far as guests, call makers, and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it'll be really good stuff. And we got Corey, the director from the Fly Fishing Guide School. He's going to come on too in the next couple episodes. So we got some good stuff lined up. Yeah, and guys, there's so much out there too, you know, with what people are interested in as far as content. So just maybe feel free to hit me up and ask questions if you guys want me to do an episode about what kind of gear I've been using on my trips and what worked and what didn't. Be absolutely happy to do that for you guys. You know, I've kind of already probably droned on too long for this episode, so maybe I'll do a follow-up with gear for the hunt that I just went on. But I just feel like there's so many pack dumps out there that I don't know that you guys are going to want to hear me blab about my gear. I have a rifle, rain gear, a pack, and all the basic necessities to get out there and kill deer and elk and bring them back out of the woods. So if you got questions, though, please don't feel like you can't ask. I would be happy to answer those questions. And that's about it. I think that wraps it up, folks. For mule deer hunt in the books, 2025 is still going. So I got some more hunts going. I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. So best of luck with people that still have tags to fill. And congratulations to those that have found some success. I appreciate everybody listening to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. If you would, pretty please, guys, subscribe, like, follow, and definitely comment. Again, you can reach out to me by commenting on the shows. You can reach out to me at the Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Outdoors. You can email me, Thomas at pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com, and I would just be happy to answer questions, engage with you guys. And just remember that when we hit 100 followers, we will be doing a gear giveaway, be giving away a response-ready medical trauma kit that you could throw in your pack. You could be prepared anywhere you go in the backcountry. We'll probably even get you trained up on that a little bit. So, yep, gear giveaway from Response Ready Medical at 100 followers on Spotify. We're slowly but surely getting there. It's not about followers and likes, but you guys help make my time for the show worthwhile. I just enjoy doing it, and I enjoy the conversations. So until next time, guys, just go out there and keep pursuing freedom in the outdoors. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks again. And if this resonates with you, I want to welcome you to the tribe and encourage you to share this podcast with your friends. Hit subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Outdoors. And if you or someone you know has a great story about life or the wilderness, I want to share it. You can shoot me a message on Instagram or email me with all inquiries and questions at thomas@pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. That's Thomas, Thomas, at pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. Until next time, get out there, get after it, and pursue freedom in the outdoors.